They left suburban life behind, moved to one of the most remote places in America, and spent years building a homestead that most people would never survive. And then, at the moment their channel was finally growing, they made a decision that changed the direction of everything. Their name is Holdfast Alaska, and they are not the creators most people assume they are when they first click on one of their videos. By the end of this, you will understand exactly why this decision was bigger than anything they had ever done before, and why it might be the reason they are still standing. There is a particular kind of person who, when faced with the comfort and predictability of suburban life, chooses to walk away from all of it. Not temporarily, not for a gap year or a camping trip, permanently. That is the choice Holdfast Alaska made, and understanding why makes everything that comes after it make a lot more sense. Before the channel, before the log cabin, before the wood stove and the fish wheel and the 60 below winters, they were living in the suburbs. Ordinary roads, ordinary stores, ordinary infrastructure. The kind of life where you do not have to think too hard about where your food comes from or whether your heating system will hold through the night. Then they left. The decision to move to interior Alaska was not a casual one. The Copper River Basin is not a place most people stumble into. It is interior Alaska, remote by design, shaped by extreme cold, flooding rivers, and the kind of terrain that makes modern logistics a significant daily challenge. There are no delivery drivers pulling up to the door. There is no gas station down the road. Getting supplies means multi-hour drives, sometimes in weather that makes those drives genuinely dangerous. They did not arrive with a completed homestead. They built it from scratch. That detail matters because it separates Holdfast Alaska from a certain category of homesteading content, where the hard work is implied, but the foundation is already there. These were people who came from an environment where none of this was normal and had to figure it out, one system at a time. The channel launched in February 2021. Those early videos were not polished productions. They were documentation, what it actually looks like to try to build something real in a place that does not make it easy for you. That honesty was the foundation, and it started to grow. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. Content that built Holdfast Alaska into what it is today was not any single viral moment. It was consistency and specificity, the two things that actually sustain a channel in the long run, even when the algorithm is not paying attention. Their videos are not survival spectacles. They are not disaster documentaries. They are documentation of what subsistence living actually looks like across every season in interior Alaska. The woodpile that has to be split and stacked before the temperature drops. The moose harvest in September that feeds the family through winter. The goats that need shelter when it hits -40. The salmon that have to be caught, processed, and preserved in a window that does not wait for you. What separated Holdfast Alaska from similar channels early on was the level of specificity they brought to ordinary tasks. They were not just filming homestead life, they were filming the mechanics of it. How you dry salmon the way it was done generations before refrigeration existed. How you render 70 pounds of beef suet into a full year's supply of cooking oil. How a 100-year-old sourdough technique works without a recipe or a measuring cup. That video alone, on the old-style sourdough starter, crossed 1 million views. The winter content hit particularly hard. Their video on a 17-hour supply run in remote Alaska pulled in 1.34 million views and a breakout score of over 10 times the channel's average performance. The episode where their wood stove failed at -40 had viewers watching all the way through because the stakes were not manufactured. That is a genuine emergency when the temperatures outside will kill you. Preparing for -50, a blizzard bearing down on the property. These were not segments in a carefully produced show. They were real events being documented in real time. By late 2024 and into 2025, the audience had grown to reflect all of that. People who wanted to see what it actually looks like when a family chooses to live completely outside the systems most of us depend on. And the channel was growing fast. And that's when the decision was made, the one nobody around them saw coming. In the summer of 2026, Holdfast Alaska changed the scope of what they were doing. They built a fish wheel for their village. That one sentence does not sound dramatic unless you understand what it means in context. A fish wheel is a large, river-powered device that scoops salmon as they run upstream, a tool that has been used in Alaska for generations as a primary means of subsistence harvest. It is not simple to build. It requires timber, hardware, engineering knowledge, and a launch into moving river water. It is the kind of project that a family might undertake for themselves, and that would already be compelling content. But Holdfast Alaska did not build it for themselves alone. They built it for their village. The language in the videos shifted, not just their homestead, their animals, their winter preparation, their village, their community, their neighbors in a remote settlement on the Copper River. The videos came in quick succession. First the build, then the launch, then a community fish wheel launch on the Copper River. The June 2026 video documenting the build and launch hit 1.39 million views, one of the largest single video performances in the channel's history, with a breakout score of 7.5 times the channel's expected average. The community launch video followed weeks later and immediately began generating hundreds of views per hour. What the decision communicated to anyone watching closely was a fundamental shift in identity. Holdfast Alaska had been, up to that point, primarily a family channel, a husband and wife documenting their own homestead, their own survival, their own challenges. Building the fish wheel for the village said something different. It said, we are not just here for ourselves anymore. We are part of this place. Most people who know this story stop here, but the real story starts right now. Building a community fish wheel did not just mean additional labor on top of an already demanding homestead schedule. It meant making a public commitment to other people in a place where the consequences of failure are not abstract. In remote interior Alaska, subsistence harvest is not a lifestyle choice. It is survival infrastructure. When you tell a village that you are going to build and operate a fish wheel on the Copper River, and the salmon run is a finite seasonal event that does not repeat on request, you are accepting responsibility for an outcome that matters to other people's food supply. That is not the same as a YouTube project that can be rescheduled. The timing pressure was real. The Copper River salmon runs operate in a window. Miss it or have the wheel fail to perform, and there is no second chance until the following year. In June 2026, one of their videos was titled "Racing to Rebuild Our Fish Wheel Before the Salmon Arrive," the stakes framed right there in the title. Then came "We Lost Our Fish Wheel on Alaska's Copper River," a video that documented exactly what happened when the river won a round. That video pulled 228,000 views and climbed to 273 views per hour at its peak. Because audiences understood what losing a fish wheel mid-season actually means, they rebuilt. Then they launched the community wheel. Then it ran. This is not the narrative arc of a channel manufacturing drama for content. The drama was already there, built into the environment and the commitment they had made. All they did was document it honestly, which is exactly what their audience had been following them to do since 2021. The less discussed element of this whole story is what it reveals about who Holdfast Alaska actually is. A family that chose to leave the suburbs did so for reasons that were clearly deeper than a content strategy. The community fish wheel is the moment that made those reasons visible. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me because this next part is why the whole story matters. In February 2021, Holdfast Alaska uploaded their first video. By July 2026, the channel had crossed 246,000 subscribers and accumulated over 37 million total views across 185 videos. In a single month, the 30 days leading up to this video, the channel gained 31,000 new subscribers. That is not slow growth. That is a channel accelerating. Several of their videos have crossed the 1 million view mark. Processing 103 salmon reached 1.19 million views and carries their highest all-time breakout score, 14 times the channel's average performance. The 17-hour winter supply run sits at 1.34 million. The community fish wheel build in June 2026 hit 1.39 million, making it their most watched video. But the raw numbers undersell the story. What is unusual about Holdfast Alaska is that their growth has been driven by depth of engagement, not viral shock value. Their comment sections are not filled with the one-line reactions that typically follow algorithm-chasing content. They are filled with people who have been watching for months or years, who know the names of the animals, who understand the rhythm of the homestead seasons, who feel the anxiety when something goes wrong because they have been watching long enough to understand what the consequences are. That kind of audience is not built by a thumbnail. It is built by a content creator who shows up consistently and tells the truth about what they are doing. 5 years in a remote Alaskan homestead, filming every season, not just the photogenic moments. That is what produced a community that cares enough to watch a half-hour video about processing fish. The channel is also not single topic anymore. Alongside the fishing and hunting and subsistence harvest, there are now videos about pack horses being trained for backcountry access. There are goats producing milk that gets turned into cheese. There is a greenhouse that was rebuilt after winter storm damage. There is a cell tower diesel generator that became the foundation of their off-grid power system. There is a 50-year-old snowcat that they use to reach the cabin when road access is not possible. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got, until now. The public narrative around Holdfast Alaska focuses almost entirely on the homesteading content, the cold temperatures, the subsistence harvest, the off-grid infrastructure. What gets less attention is the philosophical choice embedded in every video, and how unusual it is. Most homesteading channels exist in one of two modes. Either they document the aspirational version, the well-framed farmhouse aesthetic, the clean pantry, the styled sourdough, or they lean into the survivalist frame, positioning every challenge as proof of toughness. Holdfast Alaska does neither. The channel documents the mundane alongside the extraordinary, and treats them with equal honesty. An episode about building a hot tub in a snowstorm sits alongside an episode about a truck breaking down at -41 degrees. A video about turning birch sap into syrup sits alongside a video about preparing for fire season, using a renovated abandoned fire truck. The sourdough starter video that hit 1 million views is presented with the same level of care as a moose harvest that required multi-day processing. This is not an accident. This is a consistent editorial choice, to show the full texture of what it means to live this way, rather than curating only the impressive parts. And that choice is the reason the audience stayed. The other element that rarely gets discussed is the pace. At 185 videos in roughly 5 years, Holdfast Alaska is not a channel that films when inspiration strikes. They upload consistently because they live consistently. The homestead does not take days off. The salmon run does not wait for a good filming day. The content calendar is essentially determined by the environment, which means the audience always has something real to follow. The community fish wheel decision fits exactly into this pattern. It was not a pivot for attention. It was a natural extension of a life that had been expanding deeper into the community around them, one that was always going to require more than just one family taking care of their own. At this point in the story, most people walked away. What they did instead is the part nobody talks about. As of mid-2026, Holdfast Alaska is in the most productive phase of their channel's history. The summer salmon season is actively driving their highest view-per-hour numbers. The July 4th video, living off the land in Alaska's Copper River Basin, was generating nearly 400 views per hour at its peak. The Community Fish Wheel series has drawn sustained engagement across multiple videos. The most recent content signals where the channel is heading. The village frame, building for and with their community, not just for their own household, appears to be solidifying as a permanent part of what Holdfast Alaska documents. The fish wheel built for the community is not a one-time project. It requires maintenance, seasonal repositioning, and ongoing coordination. It is infrastructure now, which means it becomes part of every salmon season going forward. The Pack Horse program is another expanding thread. Multiple videos in 2026 have documented the acquisition, training, and first rides of horses being prepared for backcountry pack use. In a place where motorized access has limits and the terrain is demanding year-round, horses represent a significant capability addition to how they move through the land. That series has only just started. The channel crossed 240,000 subscribers between July 7 and July 8, 2026, a milestone that reflects sustained momentum rather than a single spike, from 215,000 in late June to 246,000 less than a month later. The current growth rate is the fastest the channel has ever seen. What that means practically is that a family who left the suburbs to build something from scratch in one of the most demanding environments in North America is now reaching more people than ever, at the exact moment they chose to stop doing it only for themselves. One phone call, one conversation. That's all it took to change the direction of everything. The story of Holdfast Alaska is not really a story about homesteading. It is a story about what it means to be genuinely embedded in a place, not visiting it, not performing it for an audience, but actually belonging to it. Most YouTube channels built around the wilderness frame carry a kind of tourism energy, even the ones that appear authentic. There is always the implicit sense that the creator could leave, that the remoteness is a choice they are making each day, and that comfort is a short flight away if things get hard enough. Holdfast Alaska dismantled that frame video by video, season by season, until the channel reached a point where the community fish wheel was not a surprise to anyone who had been watching from the beginning. It was the logical end of a 5-year arc. The decision to build for their village was the moment the channel stopped being about what they had left behind and became entirely about what they had built toward. That shift, from a family documenting their own survival to a family embedded in a subsistence community, is not something that happens on a content calendar. It happens when you actually belong somewhere. They belong there now. The evidence is on the screen every time a new video goes up. The channel's next chapter is clearly tied to the Copper River, the fish wheels, the salmon harvest, the pack horses moving into the backcountry. All of it points toward a community and a landscape that they are now deeply connected to. The question for the audience is not whether they will keep producing content. It is how far into that community the camera will eventually follow. Do you think Holdfast Alaska made the right call, shifting their focus to their village and community? Or would you have kept the channel centered on the personal homestead story? Let me know below.